The Assange arrest could have implications for the recently completed special counsel investigation into Russian influence in the 2016 election. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has that part of the story tonight.
You should be extradited to face justice here.
The arrest of Julian Assange intersects with the imminent release of special counsel Robert Mueller's report, which is expected to shed new light on Russia's election interference and may explain to what extent Assange and WikiLeaks were active or passive players. A senior Senate Democrat made a direct connection.
There are serious charges involving his role in Russian meddling in our election. Justice should come to Julian Assange for his role in Russian meddling in our election.
The Senate Intelligence Committee chairman emphasized the damage to sources and methods.
Julian Assange has put American lives at risk, and I hope he gets a fair legal process, but one that judges him based upon the national security breaches that have happened in this country.
The 7-page Virginia indictment was filed under seal in March 2018 and made public today. While it is silent on the hacked DNC and Clinton campaign emails released by WikiLeaks, there are multiple references to the website as Organization 1 in the Mueller indictments.
We'll have the opportunity to question and for Julian Assange to have to stand for the charges that he's been allegedly to things he's done. And so one is justice. The other thing is that we'll get some information, particularly about Russian involvement in the election.
Longtime Trump advisor Roger Stone is awaiting trial for allegedly lying to Congress about his WikiLeaks contacts over the hacked emails, a charge Stone denies. Public court records refer extensively to Organization 1 and the release of, quote, tens of thousands of documents stolen from the DNC and the personal email account of the chairman of the U.S. presidential campaign of Hillary Clinton. In a 2017 interview with Fox, Assange dismissed allegations he worked with Moscow or its proxies.
Can you tell the American people 1,000% you did not get it from Russia or anybody associated with Russia?
We can say, we have said repeatedly over the last 2 months that our source is not the Russian government.
Former government officials and legal experts predict a protracted legal battle for Assange and the Justice Department over a host of issues, including extradition, that may go well beyond the Trump presidency. Brett.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome.
President Trump is not saying much today in reaction to the Assange arrest. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is at the White House tonight.
In the Oval Office today with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in, President Trump said he hadn't thought much about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks.
I know nothing about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing. And I know there is something having to do with Julian Assange. I know nothing really about him. It's not my deal in life.
During the 2016 campaign, the president had plenty to say about WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks! I love WikiLeaks. Some brutal stuff. I may not read it to you, but the hell with it. Just trust me. WikiLeaks unveils horrible, horrible things about Hillary Clinton.
WikiLeaks is amazing. It shows she's a real liar. As soon as I'm finished, I'm going to read it.
Boy, that WikiLeaks has done a job on her, hasn't it?
It's unclear why Ecuador suddenly decided to evict Julian Assange, but two key events in the timeline: the finding of no collusion by the Mueller investigation and last July's trip by the vice president to meet the new president of Ecuador, where the two leaders discussed Assange's alleged crimes.
The United States has always cherished our relationship with Ecuador, and we are determined to renew that relationship for the mutual benefit of both our nations.
The president said he trusts Attorney General William Barr to handle the Assange case appropriately.
That will be a determination, I would imagine, mostly by the Attorney General, who's doing an excellent job. So he'll be making a determination.
President Trump also weighed in again on Attorney General Barr's declaration yesterday that the Trump campaign had been spied on.
I think what he said was absolutely true. There was absolutely spying into my campaign. I'll go a step further. In my opinion, it was illegal spying, unprecedented spying, and something that should never be allowed to happen in our country again. And I think his answer was actually a very accurate one. This is dirty politics, and this is actually treason.
And on North Korea, the president said sanctions will stay on, but he is open to some humanitarian assistance for North Korea. He also indicated that while he still wants full denuclearization, he may be willing to consider South Korea's suggestion of smaller deals to keep up diplomatic momentum.
There are various smaller deals that maybe could happen. Things could happen. You can work out step-by-step pieces, but at this moment we're talking about the big deal. The big deal is we have to get rid of the nuclear weapons.
President Trump continues to hold out an olive branch to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un again today, talking about the economic potential of a North Korea without nuclear weapons, and being very specific to say a North Korea with Kim Jong-un as its leader. Brett?
John Roberts live on the North Lawn. John, thanks.
Democrats are looking to pay for a lot of their stuff with, well, taxes on the wealthy, but at least they are saying they have to pay for that stuff. Is this the answer? Democratic strategist Zach Friend. We've also got the National Review contributor David Benson, and last but not least, the Wall Street Journal's resident genius, Mary O'Grady. All right, so Mary, on this, you crunch a lot of the numbers. They say this is where you can and will get a lot of the money for this stuff. Can that?
Well, you know, Elizabeth Warren looks at this, and most of the Democrats look at this very in a static way. In other words, we're going to charge these taxes to these profits, and this is the amount we're going to get. And, of course, businesses respond to taxes. So you can't really depend on those numbers at all, because investors start making other decisions when taxes are too high.
Yeah, in the case of Amazon, with the fact that it could be $689 million there, David, I mean, then you start saying, all right, that's cutting into my return. Will I want to invest in Amazon? And then, by extension, what do I do in the end? Where do I go?
Yeah, but it's in this case, her point is exactly right, what Mary said. That money wouldn't be there, because the whole reason Amazon didn't pay taxes is because they were able to instantly expense this year in the new tax code a lot of the CapEx. So if what she actually wants to propose is that we take away incentives for capital expenditures, if she's really willing to do that to the productivity of the economy, there would not be those profits to tax, let alone all the downstream implications for jobs and wage growth. It's just completely unserious idea.
All right, but again, one of the things I did point out is that, look, Bernie Sanders was famous for this in his last run, that he said he wasn't going to just tax the rich, he was going to bring it down a little to some of the middle class. So God bless him, he was saying for all his big plans, I've got to find a way to pay for it. Now, whether the math added up in his case a few years ago is just as questionable as what these candidates, whether it does today. But what do you think of the message that's being sent for a general election nominee, not the person who ultimately gets the nomination, where this is popular?
I actually think that the fact that a number of the other candidates are hedging on this issue to some degree is very telling about how they view it in the general election, which is to say that you actually see them saying maybe Medicare for everybody that wants it, as opposed to Medicare for all. Maybe we shouldn't totally do away with the entire system. But with that said, the goalposts have moved in the Democratic primary. There's no question. Now it's really a litmus test that you have to sign on to this concept. And I think that campaigns are more value statements than they actually are the financial statements in many respects. But we'll see where it goes. I think that people are not totally on the Bernie train right now on all the candidates. But I think
they're all like little cars on that train, aren't they?
He has shifted the narrative. There's no question he shifted the narrative.
But most of the candidates have something like this in place, all right? So higher taxes, a wealth tax, an asset tax, corporate tax, surtaxes on people like you over 100 million.
Well, you know, when he says that he's going to drill down into not just the rich but the middle class more to tax them, at least he's being honest. I mean,
and he is saying to sell it that you'll get more bang for the buck than the extra bucks.
Right, yes, of course. But at least what he's admitting is that he wants the state to own a larger and larger part of the economy, which of course is exactly what socialism does. And that's why people are afraid of him, because he's not just talking about, you know, he starts with socialism, always starts with, we're going to tax the rich because they have too much.
She's going after top companies in this
country. But that's where I think the distinction between what Elizabeth Warren said today and what Bernie Sanders is saying is important in this sense. Republican conservatives like myself have been critical of them for not being serious about how they're going to pay for it. Right. But it has to be more than just that, because one of them will come up with something that involves paying for it.
Very creative ways. I blame both sides for coming up with ways to spend more money. And, you know, raise more money for that spending, but not to pair that spending.
Well, and so if he's serious, I mean, the last person who seriously said, I'm going to raise taxes on middle class to pay for something was Walter Mondale. Right. It didn't go well.
You're giving away your age. I was going to use that same example.
Yes, right? But I really do think that we also, as Republican conservatives, speaking for myself, have got to point out that it doesn't work economically. It's not just about not paying for it. It's a misallocation of capital to pull that money from corporations that have a profit motive. This week, week is the first time I got to hear Bernie Sanders defend the profit motive.
But, you know, you could look at it otherwise. If you could make a credible case for this sort of thing if the economy was doing miserably, right? I mean, but we have record high employment levels of virtually every major key demographic group in the country. And we have an economy that's, you know, doing okay. So do you want to disrupt that now and with some outlandish talk along the way?
I think that there's two parts to that. One of them is that we should be realistic and say that this wouldn't pass. Right? I mean, it's not going to get through both houses.
People always make those assumptions.
I really don't feel that it really has a high likelihood of passing. But the more important thing is that I don't think the economy is working for everybody. The numbers show exactly what you're saying, but the amount of economic insecurity that people feel throughout this country is very real.
There's always been economic insecurity. But do you think there's as much as there was before? And I'm not pinning it to any president, any party, any time, but the numbers are the numbers, whether people like President Trump or not. I mean, these are fairly good economic times. These are strong market times. People are seeing it in their portfolios, those who are lucky enough to have them, and they're seeing it in their bosses who right now are adding to their payrolls at a fairly good clip.
If that's true, why are his numbers not moving?
Well, I think that's the personal
it's a fair,
stuff.
No, it's a fair point.
I agree with you.
But it's a separate subject. I mean,
it is a separate subject. You're right. And there, you and I talked about, I'd say the president would be up 10 points in the polls on all these cases, if not for all the other stuff. But on the economic stuff,
well, I think it's true that Bernie Sanders is going after the middle class. Elizabeth Warren said, no, I'm only going after rich corporations. But what they have in common is what all socialists have in common, which is that they hate capitalists, but they love capital, and they are salivating about this money. Well, okay,
it polls well,
right? But they like a big state, and they want money. And she's talking about taxing these corporations, but she's just salivating about this $1 trillion she sees out there. I mean,
capital
they believe,
can move, right? Were you worried that Democrats advocating that? Their capital moves.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think the point you're raising, Mary, is spot on. So Medicare for all polls well, but not when you drill down into the details, when you talk about some of the taxation components of it. So that's why I think...
Who have you hooked up with? Anybody?
I haven't hooked up with anybody yet. Yeah, I think
Who are you close to hooking up with?
Well, I mean, I have a personal relationship with some of the candidates just from my history, but I'm not aligning myself with anybody right now. But I've got to say this, that I don't think that Barack Obama would get through the 2020 primary.
Well, he's warned about this.
I think he's exactly right. I think the circular firing squad comment he made is spot on. I think that this is the one. I think this is a very winnable race for Democrats, and we might still find a way to not win it based on some of the things that we're doing.
Grab defeat from the jaws of victory.
It does feel appropriate, because I remember feeling that way in some of the primaries Republicans have had in recent times, that Ronald Reagan wouldn't have been able to get through our own primary, and so now it does seem like they've moved leftward in a sense.
You and I covered the Millard-Fillmore race. Guys, thank you all very, very much. Very good seeing you again.